So, sorry. Wait.
This is not uncomfortable, but it's very weird.
This is the thing?
This is the one.
Absolutely. And now it almost couldn't have happened in a better way.
Where did you want to be?
So it was just like,
Am I funny? Now if I go over here, am I still funny?
better strategy.
Yeah, way better. I never thought about that. Yeah, so work.
I don't see it 5 years from now that you're not my most famous friend.
You really have to commit to something. Good to have something pushing you.
That's cool. That was really cool.
Yeah, it might be cool.
This is On the Cusp.
Hello and welcome to On the Cusp. Today our guest is Justin Michael. He is one half of the prolific sketch group Tremendosaur. He is an irreplaceable 1/8 of the UCB Herald team Winslow. He is the creator of Friendship All-Stars of Friendship, and he is my good buddy. This episode is sponsored by Thai Pepper at 6219 Franklin Avenue, now featuring a dinner special which includes a complimentary Thai iced tea. Thai Pepper. If Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band had a favorite restaurant, it would probably be Thai Pepper. So this episode of On the Cusp begins in a little bit of a weird way, because it begins right in the middle of my interview with Justin. I actually ended up cutting the first 40 minutes of the interview, because I actually did this interview back in 2012 with Justin, and I was still trying to figure out what I wanted this show to be. I thought back then that there'd be a lot more God talk in the show, a lot more talk about spirituality and things like that. And so the first 40 minutes or so of the episode were actually a little bit weird because it was a lot of me trying to weirdly pressure Justin to admit that God exists. And Justin having the very fair point of view that he thinks that there's a good chance God doesn't exist. It was a little bit weird, and I will spare you having to listen to it. The things that are important that I should say that got said in the first minutes of the episode is that Justin says that his parents are separated, that he's had two dads at different points in his life, but he's not crazy close to either of them, that he grew up in Los Angeles and has lived there for all of his life, and that he really likes his mom. Those are the things that Justin said, but now you're caught up on them, and you don't need to listen to a crazy 40 minutes of my religious propaganda. Justin is one of the first people that I met when I moved to LA, and he's one of the people I feel luckiest to have met. He's somebody that I've always really wanted to be like, because he's endlessly optimistic, he works crazy hard, and he's good at actually getting things made. He's also just a lot of fun to hang out with, and I hope you have fun listening to the interview. So, again, the interview begins right in the middle of the interview, after all of my weird God stuff, and it begins right after I've asked Justin the question of whether he thinks that when he was a kid, he was a funny kid. Here's Justin Michael.
Song I wrote in a cluttered room with the ceiling low. So if I stand too straight or I stand too tall, I bump my head and forget it all.
I think probably, yeah. Not necessarily intentionally at first. I think if you looked at videos of me, which I did, I saw old videos of me and I sang and danced. Honestly, I was the cartoonish stereotype of a gay person.
Yeah.
Which I'm trying to say that in the least I hope that didn't sound homophobic.
No, I loved how it sounded.
Okay, good. No, I just mean it was I just everything. I would have expected me to be gay based on looking at old videos of me.
Yeah, I would have expected me to be gay based on everything I know about myself.
Right? What's going on?
I know.
But I think I was that was kind of irrelevant. But basically, I was super talkative, over talkative. I think I talked to anybody.
Really?
While being wheeled down a supermarket aisle. I would just try to talk to people.
So you were always charming.
I was a charming little kid for sure.
And then was there a point where you ever became shy, or are you...
I think I have an introverted sense of self. Yeah. There are sometimes, I just don't... I think I'll go through phases where I don't want to interact with a ton of people.
Yeah.
I'll just see, the core, 3 to 5 people.
Yeah.
I'm nope, can't handle...
And anybody beyond that feels exhausting.
Yeah, or I'm putting on a show. Not a show, but especially around comedians just doing bits all the time, which don't get me wrong, I love, but sometimes I don't want to be doing bits. I want to have a real conversation.
Yeah. I almost always want to just have a real conversation.
It's great.
But,
which I think is something that I like about most, at least comedians we know, is that you can, usually one-on-one though.
It's harder.
It's really when you get
backstage at UCB,
or even just get more than 2 of us together, and it's joke time.
Do you feel like you function well in a group of 8 people all doing their joke, throwing your bit in and knowing when it's your time to?
Sometimes it depends on how aware of it I am. I think sometimes I'll try to, I think sometimes I'll naturally just jump on board and I think you'll just build off of what everybody else is saying, but sometimes I'm I don't want to have to fight to talk. Okay, cool, you do your thing. Let's just move past this so we can hang out.
It's been amazing though. I feel our group of friends, there's been times where they could have set the world record for most words spoken without saying a single thing.
Oh, absolutely. And most voices used without using your real voice. Yeah. And I think it honestly just depends on how social a mood I'm in.
Yeah.
Because it's also cathartic. I really, if I'm having a legitimately shitty day and I just feel terrible about real life. If something legitimately bad has happened, there's something calming and cathartic about hanging out with our group of friends and we're just talking about things superficial. We're able to speak in an easy language that we all understand, we all can get each other and just kind of have fun.
Yeah, I like that too.
We get to play around. That's really cool.
I think it's a great. I think what it works as is a great replacement for the stupid small talk most of America has.
Yeah.
That consists of, hey, how's it going?
How's the weather? Which legitimately is the small talk I go to when I am talking to us. It's because weather's so universal. It really, there's a reason why it's the parody of small talk.
I can't do small talk, so I feel I end up just imitating what small talk sounds like to me.
Oh, I can't either.
A woman at work said to me, how's it going? And, because the real answer would probably be, I'm sad because I work on this show Intervention as a PA. My answer was well, it's 2012.
Well, that's it. Trail off. Yeah, no, I know. Well, things are, things are things.
Barack Obama is president, and the Yankees are doing okay. So.
How about that?
I don't like small talk. So, yeah, I like that we've replaced small talk with fun bits.
At least we're doing bits. Yeah, and also, we get to act like kids and not be kids. People... I feel people in the real world, or, non-comedy people, I think, or not, and I don't know, artistic people, non-artistic people, although I feel a lot of people are artistic even if they don't define themselves as artistic career-wise, but I don't know why I'm trying to justify all this. Basically, I think people try to get, grow up and not be a kid, and, so quickly. And it's cool that we basically are trying to make a living at maintaining, a stranglehold on our childhood.
A whole community of Peter Pans.
Which, leaves people kind of emotionally stunted sometimes, but also...
Totally.
Everybody is so smart that everybody we know. In different ways.
Yeah, it's so smart.
At least, to be an improviser... a good improviser, or, you have to be a good communicator, and you have to be smart. And
Yeah.
even if it's not like book smart, intellectual smart, like I respect everybody we know because everybody brings something different and personal to the table.
Well, it feels like you've done a good job at doing the things about growing up that mean maturing, and not doing the things about growing up that means saying goodbye to the most like precious parts of who you are and what you love the most.
I grapple with that. I don't know. Like I collected action figures for a very long time.
And what's wrong with that right now?
Right? Well, I mean, some pretty like dark, shitty stuff happened a couple years ago, and I just one day it just like wasn't worth it. I was like, there are bigger things. Like I just had no desire to, buy Series 18 of like DC Universe classics and put together a collect and connect big, villain figure and put them in my closet and pose them. And like, it just, I think maybe the collecting was like a means of like control if I was like psychoanalyzing myself. I don't know why, but like, I think like at that moment I was like, oh, this doesn't mean anything compared to like a bigger, sadder thing. But now recently I've slowly gotten back on the train, which I don't know if that's good or bad.
Was this being almost mugged or breaking up with your girlfriend?
Oh, neither. But it's not my story.
Okay.
I like it was some family stuff that was, it's not my story to tell or share.
Yeah.
But it was draining, and I had to like do it at the same time as other really like good things were happening, and it was hard. It was hard.
Yeah, when you come up against the fact that there are things that happen in this world that are sadder than anything we could usually imagine.
It's just when real life hits, and it's like, oh, that puts everything in perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean
That I was gonna defend your comic books, but I think that.
Well, but I do. I mean, now I remember seeing The 40-Year-Old Virgin when it came out, being really upset that like the solution was like he's growing up and he's like getting rid of all of his stupid toys. And I mean, maybe it's because I was like very into collecting action figures at the time, and also he was 40 and I was 20. I don't know how old I was when that movie came out. Was it in college or high school?
I think it was high school.
For us, it was high school. So maybe it was like because I was that old, but it bothered me that it was like, well, you can be a mature person and still be into like goofy, silly stuff, or maybe that's how I justify it to myself. I love cartoons and playing around.
Me too.
I would rather be silly than like try to be serious.
I mean, sometimes when I think about like what would I do if I had money, the only thing I can like think of is like, oh, I'd finish my Muppet action figure collection.
Oh man.
Because I have like probably 70 of the ones that they made, but there's like a good 15 that I don't, and I don't have the backstage playset.
The backstage playset's really cool.
Which you have.
I do.
Right?
I have too many Muppet action figures in boxes in my closet.
It's not... No,
they're the coolest though, right? They were the best sculpts.
They're so cool, and so I wonder sometimes, why do I want that? Like, why would it make me happy to like have more of this material thing? Like,
right, because it just becomes clutter.
Sweden sculpture.
Hey, he's pretty big.
I picture having like a room where I set them up and stuff.
What have you come to? That? Why do you... Because that's honestly something that I've constantly tried to figure out why I was drawn to it.
Because for whatever stupid reason, when I look at those things and when I touch them and move around their arms and like play with the eyelids on like the animal action figure, like it makes me happy. Like
right?
It's stupid that it makes me happy, but it does.
Yeah, I guess we can. I mean, everything's stupid. Not everything's stupid, but everything that makes people happy, the specific things that make people happy are probably more or less equally stupid. We've just accepted certain things as being normal.
Totally.
But
what's not stupid that makes us happy?
I really try, but I wish that I could fully embrace being like that kid-like mentality of like being able to play with those toys. Because like, I'll tell you, I for sure tried at various ages and, like varying levels of sobriety. I was like, well, maybe if I get stoned and I pull out my favorite old action figures, I could just recreate that, like that feeling of because when I was younger, I did these sprawling, probably super boring shows for my mom and sister and babysitters that were like, I would print out signs on Microsoft Publisher, like Superman versus Brainiac, but they were basically just reenactments of episodes of like Superman the Animated Series or Batman the Animated Series, or maybe like Spider-Man met Earthworm Jim. But I would just like do these 45-minute like including like making music with my mouth, but also trying to do the lines at the same time.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. But and like I miss that kind of. You're not judging yourself when you do that. I think that's...
No. That is super endearing.
Like, there's no judgment there. And I wish that I had that same sense of no judgment when I'm, like, writing something now.
You do belong to a club that meets about twice a week to 3 times a week to make pretend little scenes.
Exactly. Well, I mean, yeah, you take a step back and, like, watch an improv practice, and it is insane. Yeah. Like, we're crazy people.
You're playing pretend for a living.
It's the best.
Yeah.
And we've all agreed that it's normal, and which is great. But it's like, if you tried explaining, like, what you did.
But, right. And is it that is part of why you can't go back to action figures, like, playing with them in that totally sacred way, that there's no way that playing will bring you a sitcom?
I don't know about that. Yeah, I wonder if it's like there are different things at stake now.
Because improv...
But I don't think of improv as a means to, like, be on a sitcom or write on or whatever. Like, to me, improv is pure. Yeah, it's... I honestly don't have a reason to not do improv. It's just, it's part of me. It's something I want to do. And it... I don't know. I couldn't tell you why. It's just something that I love doing.
It's not a little bit of a means to an end?
Yeah, I know. I'm for sure. There, like, looking at it as a career sort of thing, I can... Yeah, good things come out of improv, but that's not why I'm driven to do it.
Why was it a big deal to you to get on a Herald team? Why did you...
Well, I've been trying for years.
But why were you trying? Why did you want it all together?
I don't know. It was a goal. It's you know what I think it is? I think it's because it's a tangible goal in a nebulous job path. So, like, if we look at, like, I think, like, there are pros and cons to, like, doing a creative job and a non-creative job. And I'm using those, I think, loosely because I think, like, there are certain jobs we might consider non-creative that have pockets of creativity in them. But, like, let's just say, like, a 9-to-5 job versus, like, trying to be an actor or a painter or a singer. Like, there's no right path to a creative job. And I think you figure it out as you go along, and you can, like, learn things from other people. You can take their advice, but their advice won't necessarily apply to your life. It's such a personal thing. Like, the most you can do is try your hardest, keep working at it, and just do the best you can and not be afraid to fail. And so if that's your career path, then there are no markers. Like, there are certain things we can look forward to, but there's not like, okay, I do this, and then I'm going to get a promotion to, like, be head improviser, and then I will, after being head improviser, I get cast on a show because that's what happens. Like, ideally, sure, like, you get noticed somewhere, but who knows? Like, it's all circumstance, too. So, to me, I think, like, it's exciting to have those milestones because, like, to want to be on a... At a certain point, it's because you want a little bit of structure. And so, like, being part of UCB or, another theater means that at least you have these classes, these levels that you can graduate from, and you have an attainable goal. Even if the chances are super slim, there's something that you're trying towards that's concrete. And I think maybe that's part of the reason. And also just that it's a cool place and a community of people that are like-minded and that embraces doing what you love to do. Like, why wouldn't you want to be a part of that?
No, there doesn't seem like there would be any reason. Other than that it I think, hurts people's feelings a lot when they don't get on the team repeatedly. And then you feel like success is boiled down to whether you achieve that goal when you get the chance to once out of 1 week out of every year.
And who knows how you're feeling that day and
right.
how the people in that room are feeling that day and like what you have done recently. Like,
it's fluky that you made it in on your third time and not your second.
I think it was the fourth time.
Your fourth time.
It's not. I mean, it was what it was, and I'm like super happy that I'm on the team that I'm on, though.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't be happier that this is the way that it turned out, though. And I just think that like you can't get bitter about that kind of stuff. I mean, you can, and maybe it's not for you, and maybe that's like the life choice that you make that pushes you in a different direction. But like for me, it was like I'm just gonna keep on trying.
Yeah. And now it almost couldn't have happened in a better way.
I got on a team with all my like best friends.
So back to this singing, dancing.
Oh yeah, I went off on a real fucking tangent. Yeah.
When were you singing and dancing?
I don't know. I mean, for a while, all I really wanted to do was be on Broadway. That's like I didn't listen to anything but musical theater and like Tchaikovsky and books on tape, falling asleep. And maybe like my uncle made me like mixtapes of, you know, normal music that I would listen to, but because he made it for me, not because I like was seeking out bands. I think I didn't really listen to bands until like late high school. Yeah, I couldn't tell you, like I'm so bad with music. You know, like I know what I know at this point. Like in college, I dove into things, but only by recommendation. So I don't know like certain types of music. I could not make jokes about the bands that we like grew up around, what was on the radio or something.
Yeah, me neither.
And it's the worst because that's what like most people connect on.
Yeah.
Music and sports. Like two things that I don't know anything about.
I didn't get music until college when people started like suggesting like Sufjan Stevens and Regina Spektor.
Yeah. And even that, like, I got into like Ben Folds, which is like a step away from musical theater as it is. But I would like listen to that stuff. Like I listened to like a demo Simpsons sound like it was a CD made to sell the actual CD. So it was like honestly some dude did like a 5-minute remix of the entire CD and I like loved it. And I would listen to it over and over. Yeah, I got really into The Simpsons in middle school. So I would listen to that, like, you know, the Star Wars soundtrack. A lot of soundtracks. I liked movies.
You're describing exactly the CDs that I was listening to. All my CDs were like the Star Wars Episode 2 CD.
I had Episode 1. I don't know why I liked it.
A bunch of stupid soundtracks. What Dreams May Come soundtrack. The Austin Powers 2 soundtrack.
I had Austin Powers 1.
I wouldn't know how to relate to you.
Yeah, well, we're different.
So we haven't gotten yet to when this singing, dancing, musical loving little stereotypically gay boy becomes funny in a way that people know.
Well, in middle school, I think I realized I was funny. I would make, and that's probably when my grades started dipping. Or maybe like high school is when they really did. Probably like 10th grade is when it all went down the hole. But I started watching The Simpsons, and I you know, like quoting things was really big. So like you would just quote Simpsons episodes to each other. And I remember my friend, this guy Zach Young, got me a Simpsons book on like the first 8 seasons. I think is what it was up to at that point. Is that really? For me, maybe it was 10 seasons.
Updated like as it went.
Well, so I had that one and I poured over it.
I remember going up to like the army, the episode where they go to like boot camp or something. It definitely was, like now it would be like 3 times as long. But I remember reading over the quotes. They had bios for the characters. I bought all the action figures that had like, you would put them on their bases and they would say quotes and stuff. I think Simpsons merchandise was like at an all-time high and I was just consumed by it. So I was really influenced by that. I think like Simpsons was my number one at the time. And so I think it started with just like quoting The Simpsons. Also like all the cartoons that we grew up with, at least like I think all those Warner Brothers cartoons like Animaniacs and Tiny Toons and Freakazoid, like those were legitimately funny cartoons. I mean, depending on which episode you're watching, and like, Pinky and the Brain and all of that stuff, like
So I feel like that like kind of had this weird undercurrent of influence on me, and then my friend Harry and I started making silly videos in his garage all the time.
What age was that?
Well, he and I met between 6th grade and 7th grade. Oakwood, the school I went to, would pair you up with a buddy. And he was a new kid, and I was an old kid from the elementary school. So, like, you would know somebody going in. And I think, like, there were a lot of people paired together and that probably didn't stay best friends, but we were best friends from that point forward. Love doing stuff together. I just, we're working on stuff today. But he introduced me to film in a big way. Like when I met Harry, I thought the best movie ever made was My Fellow Americans with Jack Lemmon and James Garner and Dan Aykroyd. And there was I defended, like, he was like 2001: A Space Odyssey is the best film ever made. And I was like, well, have you seen My Fellow Americans? Because it's pretty fucking funny. Although I wouldn't have said fucking then.
It's pretty nifty funny.
It's pretty nifty funny. I just said what you said. But yeah, I think he and I like kind of helped each other grow. Like he has a pretty vaudeville-y sense of humor. And like I would say like cheesy and dark at the same time.
And
he's legitimately funny.
If his is cheesy and dark, yours is...
mine is also, I think, pretty cheesy and dark. I think UCB has also affected the way that, like learning to ground things and, like, at least give a why. Or, like, you watch something like The Venture Brothers, and I never really put it together, because I loved Venture Brothers in college. I thought it was such a good show, and I still really like it. But why I really, was drawn to it, I think it's something that, like, Alex Fernie articulated about it, is just that they do such a good job of, like, grounding, crazy things in a mundane world. Like, which is nothing new at this point. I feel like a lot of comedy does that now, but I think at the time, at least, Venture Brothers was one of the only cartoons, like, in the superhero genre doing that had, like, mainstream visibility. I don't know where I'm going with this. I liked The Simpsons. And I made a lot of jokes in class and took advantage of nice teachers letting me do creative projects. Like I did something called Infanticide the Musical, which was just a very loose way of not writing a paper. And instead, me and Harry and a couple other people did like a musical about infanticide in like a European history class.
Can I hear... Do you remember any of it?
I don't. I remember there was one song called Hello Death Nurse, because there were these, I guess, because to prevent overpopulation, I think, there were, like, people called death nurses who would, like, kill babies. And I don't think it was, like, a super common thing. But we wrote, like, a Hello Dolly parody, and it was just like, Hello Death Nurse. It was, like, that kind of voice. I don't know. It was, like, the most grating thing. And our teacher at the time thought this was worthwhile enough. He was the coolest teacher. He still is. And he, like, we came to different classes, different sections of the class, and played this video. And it wasn't a video. It was just the audio file that had to be viewed on a DVD, because I don't think we could figure out how to convert it or something.
Yeah.
Or, like, I did something like we had to, like philosophy and social issues, like I had to like write a thing about retributivism, and it was like the Muppets take retributivism, and like at that point I had started like cursing, and like I think I made a lot of like shitty jokes like that were just at the expense of like they were just offensive. They were just like pushing boundaries for the sake of pushing boundaries.
In the Muppets take retributive?
Yeah, like there was something like Fozzie was saying really I should find it. I know I have it somewhere.
Where you were at. Like, at that point, where you, like, wanted to be edgy, but still, like, wanted to write this Muppet project.
It was, like, basically the equivalent of, like, fan fiction, not having to do real homework and writing jokes. And, like, for sure made terrible jokes when like, in middle school, like, people would just, like, it was just, like, pushing the boundaries, like just shitty, like, why was Helen Keller a bad driver? Because she was a woman. Like, that's not funny.
It's a pretty good joke.
It's not funny. Well, I mean, you can think it's funny.
I've known I've laughed at that.
Yeah, I for sure laughed at that. But, like, now I wouldn't want to... Like, that's not something that would make me laugh. That's shitty.
No, it's shitty.
Ben's writing it down on his good jokes idea pad.
So can you say this again? She's a woman.
Yeah, Helen Keller was a bad driver because she was a woman.
I'm going to be laughing at that one.
That's your hand, man. You're writing it on your hand.
Well...
You don't even have a pen. You're just scratching your palm.
Notebooks prices have become prohibitive.
Oh, $1.99 is too much.
So you start making films with Harry when you're in what grade, you said?
Probably around 7th. The first one we did was a Siskel and Ebert parody that his dad wouldn't watch because my voice was too grating. Oh no, that was a Regis and Kathy Lee one. We did like an Antiques Roadshow thing that we just improvised as like different characters.
You were leaving no stone unturned.
No, we did. He's an animator, like since he was born, practically, and we did like a parody of our teacher in humanities, who was later our art history teacher, Glenn, called Glumby. It was like a pretty unflattering sculpture of him, and we showed it to him. He was super cool about it, but it was like gave him like a pot belly and like made fun of. But he was also super Glenn. We did a cut paper animation thing, and like it made fun of other teachers. We showed it to the humanities department, but I don't think other people saw it. Like the PE teacher was the villain, and it turned out he was a Terminator robot because he kind of had a robotic cadence.
I love that you were like doing this stuff in just the like absolutely wrong environment. Like this is so much exactly what you would be doing 10 years later in Hollywood, but like nobody in your school was gonna option.
Oh, well,
Glumby.
You know, Glumby actually is optioned by Warner Brothers right now.
Oh my god!
3-picture deal.
And do the Gumby people have any problem with it?
Yeah. No, they have a lot of problems. Legally, we don't have any grounds to make this.
Well, I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Sounds like...
Well, good to see you, sir.
Goodbye.
Bye.
And so you're making things with Harry, and then you have a huge dip in 10th grade because you're doing too much... musical parodies.
Well, I don't know. I think it was just life got hard.
Oh, life got hard.
You know.
But then you somehow do well enough to go to USC.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I mean, I did well enough. And
Isn't USC a good school?
Yeah. It definitely is. I think I didn't view it as a great school when I was going in because a lot of people I knew, they were going to like Ivy League schools. Like it was like a big college prep. Although, like, you know, reflecting back on it, it's like, no, like, I had this idea that I would go to, like, Harvard or Vassar was another place, like, I really wanted to go.
Did you write that down in your journal?
I don't think so. I don't have a journal. I had a live journal at one point.
Did you write that you wanted to go to Harvard in your live journal?
Maybe. I think I just told people. Like, that's where I want, and, like, I visited the school, and they were like, this is where the, you know, Muppets Take Manhattan was filmed. I was like, sign me up.
Yeah,
you're like an pretty openly like liberal-minded campus. Like people who are super smart go here. And the Muppets Take Manhattan, the movie that, you know, sure, my least favorite Jim Henson Muppet movie, but like still a Jim Henson Muppet movie, great.
It's just the scene in the auditorium, and then
I think the wedding is what was filmed. Oh no, maybe not. I think the wedding was filmed there.
Oh, I want to go to that school.
Yeah, well. That's why Convoy is so cool, because they went to the school that Muppets Take Manhattan was filmed at.
And you wanted to be a dramatic arts major or like a theater major?
I wanted to do theater. I really wanted to do voiceover. Voiceover was like a huge passion of mine, and I think, I mean, it still is something I really would like to do. But I just did silly, like in school, like I did silly voices. Harry and I would do really goofy voices. At some point, I'm pretty wacky and weird, I'd say, my sense of humor, but I would say, like, when I got to UCB, it was kind of like, this sounds too negative, it wasn't beaten out of me in, like, a shitty way. I think it was necessary to, like, you know, okay, like, let's focus, like, let's harness what you have, and, like, grounding things is so important, but I think I took it to the extreme, and would play, you know, straight man, I would call everything out.
Yeah.
Like that kind of improviser. Like, okay, not everything, you know, nothing can be, you know, a shred of weird. You know, like we're told that like we have to play this as a reality, so if there's a unicorn, well, I'm going to call this out and act really surprised and scared because there's no real world equivalent of a unicorn existing. You know, like that would have to be the focal point of the scene at that point, is that it was so unusual that a unicorn was there, rather than like following the fun and like grounding a world of unicorns in a way that, you know, like, okay, we have our baseline, unicorns exist, but like, what's the actual game here?
Yeah.
And not just calling out the first not real thing.
That's how you've evolved.
I don't know. I hope so. I still think it's hard. For me, it's hard to balance like having fun and going all out and like, you know, being focused. I think that's one of the hardest things in improv, is like the best improvisers like really just do both.
Yeah. Do you feel permission now to do more funny voices? Like
I think I've lost some of that performery aspect. I feel like I became more writerly and like, but I think I do goofy voices in Winslow shows sometimes. But I think I was a better actor and committed. I think I have trouble committing to characters now because I feel self-conscious about, like, I feel like, oh, I'm not like an actor, but I would like, I also, because I felt like I condescended and looked down upon acting. There was a period of time, like when you get into comedy, I think there's, what I like about comedians versus straight up actors, and this is a broad generalization, but at least like we're self-aware of how ridiculous what we're doing is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. I'm glad. Like, I mean, there are great actors who are super into their world and like, you know, have to like really get into it, and I respect that. But also, there's something so fundamentally silly about what we do that I can't. I think it's hard to ignore that.
Right.
Like,
actors respect
and not
themselves.
silly in like a disrespectful way. Like, so like let's like appreciate that what we're doing is playing pretend.
Yeah.
And some of us do an incredibly good job at it. And I think that takes real talent, but let's be aware of what we're doing.
Totally. And actors aren't. They feel self-important sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it depends on who you're talking to, like, depending on the actor. And I also think that was a means of, like, convincing myself that, like, I shouldn't do that. Like, I think I was afraid to delve deeper into it because you have to be confident enough to, like, we're confident enough to be silly on stage and not be self-conscious about it. Like,
yeah.
You know, like, Ben, if I, like, labeled you, like, a pooping goat who, like, you know, has rainbows for eyes and sounds like Shirley Temple, I have no doubt that you would just commit to that. Yeah, but like there are people who, like, I feel like there's some, maybe it's like the flip side, some like, you know, serious actors who would never do that without feeling self-conscious. But I feel like we also, sometimes it's hard for us to be serious because we have such an eye for what's funny and like what's absurd about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The book about acting is like respect for acting.
Yeah, and like
improv is a lot about learning to be not precious with things.
Yep.
And have less respect sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, have respect. I mean, commit to your silliness, but it's still, you're supposed to be having fun.
Agreed.
There's like a whimsical nature to it.
So when do you meet Jacob Reed, your partner?
When did I meet him? College. He and I met pretty quickly in college. He was on a group called Second Nature, which was an improv group. There were like two at the time, Comedus, Interruptus, and Second Nature. Comedus was like the team that had been around for, I think, like 8 years or 10 years. I don't know. It was around for longer. Second Nature had just started. And I remember seeing one of their shows, and the Second Nature show was like terrible. And I was like, I want to be on Comedus. I don't want to be on this other group.
Yeah. Was Jacob Reed in this terrible group?
Yeah. Jacob was on it. Clay Larson was on it. And I honestly, reflecting on it, like, I don't know how terrible it was. I think I was pretty judgmental. But it wasn't a great show.
Oh, if Jacob and Clay were on it, I bet it was horrible.
Yeah, you're right. They're terrible people. So then I auditioned for both groups. And, like, the thing is with Comedus, they take you on into, there's a few more weeks where, like, there's select people who aren't on the team, but, like, you get to do workshops with Comedus. And then at the end, after that, they pick, like, 2 or 4 people or whatever from that group of people, and the rest, like, don't get on the team at all. And the Second Nature, they take you on the team right away. And I got into the workshop and into Second Nature, so I had to decide, like, I think within like an hour or two. And I didn't know what to do. And I was like, well, I'd rather, this is a surefire bet, like I'll get on a team versus having to slog through a workshop and like then possibly not get on a team and not get on the other one.
Yeah.
And so then I met Jacob in that group, and he started a sketch group out of that, largely out of people who auditioned for Second Nature and didn't get on the team, who he liked. And so there were like 10 or 12 of us. And so we did a sketch group that did like one show or sometimes two shows at the end of the semester.
And that was your entrance into like traditional sketch comedy?
Uh-huh. Yeah, and at one point, there's this dude, Tom McMillan. He moved out here from New York. He was doing a study abroad. He went to Tufts, but he came to USC, and he took UCB classes. And we were doing short form at Second Nature, and he was like, hey, there's this thing called the Herald, and like there's long form improv, and it really divided the group. And some people were like, UCB's a cult. It's like, well, yeah, every place is like you could describe as a cult. You know, any community of people that like, you know, it's revolving around one thing, it's gonna become cultish in some aspect. But they were like, yeah, I remember this one dude just kept talking about the cult of UCB. Like, yeah, you just want to go along with the cult of UCB, and we were like, well, we just want to. This is like more fun.
Yeah.
Like, we did a ton of short form, and also like you can get really. I feel like there's a ceiling for short form, in my opinion. Like, it can be entertaining. I think it's like I'm sure it's a good introduction for some people to get into improv. You know, when they're younger, like the Comedy Sports or high school league. And in freshman year of college, I went to like every musical at Comedy Sports for like a semester. It's like an improvised musical, and I loved it. But I feel like you kind of figure out the patterns of like the games you're playing, and like I don't want to walk through something knowing what's going to happen, you know. And there's room for playing around, and the best improvisers can do both. But I feel like it just becomes rote, right?
Totally.
You did short form.
I did. Yeah. Well, there's first of all literally a cap.
Yeah. Because
the end goal really is just like making jokes. It feels like jokes are more encouraged in short form and do actually work, and puns are going to work in short form.
Hey man, puns work across the board in any form of comedy.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step
Come on.
You are the punniest comedian in UCB.
Yes. I'd throw Mark Rennie in that.
I heard there was like that you had gotten insulted the other day.
Oh, because somebody told me Ryan Rosenberg says he's better at puns than me.
Nonsense.
Yeah, right.
Well, there needs to be some sort of competition.
There is.
Or a pun-petition.
Hey man, keep on trying.
Okay.
You're a regular Ryan Rosenberg. No. There's an O. Henry pun-off in Texas, in Austin, Texas.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think I would be good with puns under pressure. I'm not. I actually think if Ryan and I had a pun-off, I don't know who would win, because they just happen in my brain. It's not something I think about. I think it must be like a neurological disorder. like it happens before I can like think about it. I just hear things and I twist them in my brain.
I'm opening a soap store, and I want it to have a name which parodies a movie. Can you help me?
A soap store with a name that parodies a movie? Yeah. See, this is pressure.
I want to see if you operate well in this.
Soap floats.
Really good.
Soaperation Dumbo Drop. That's a bad one. I was thinking more about OP.
No, I'm going to settle on that. My store is going to be called Soaperation
Dumbo Drop.
Way to go. Cool. Yeah, there's definitely a cap in short form. So you joined. So you wanted to join the cult of UCB. Is there anybody else in this USC, either the sketch group or Second Nature, who I may have heard of.
Maybe there are other people, a lot of people. We started this festival, this intercollegiate improv festival called Fracas. And that basically all these other colleges, improv teams would come out to USC for a weekend, and there were classes and panels. Like, classes were taught by people from like UCB, Groundlings, IO, Comedy Sports. And you get T-shirts, and improvisers would have sex for that one time during the year when they have sex, and meet other like-minded people. And like the 5 girls at the time, whatever the ratio of like dudes to girls, the girls would probably like have their pick of the litter if they even wanted to hook up with another improviser.
Wow. Did you have sex during Fracas?
Yeah, but not with any I was in a relationship for 2 Fracases. It wouldn't be Frock-Eye. And then Hawkeye. That's not a pun. That's just my brain connecting things that sound alike.
Is that a character from MASH?
It's a character from the Avengers.
Oh. Who's in MASH?
I never watched MASH. Or are you doing a Who's on First with MASH? Who's on MASH? Yeah, who's on MASH?
Yes, correct.
Wait, what? No, who's on MASH? This is great.
Yes, he is. Who's on MASH?
So Ben Green and I will be debuting Who's on MASH at the Little Modern Theater next week at 8 p.m. One of the days of the week. So
starring who?
Yeah, that's my question. Who's on MASH?
No, I'm saying it's starring who?
I really want to mash.
So you had sex with your girlfriend during Fracas?
Yeah, and before then I was too socially awkward. I think I could have hooked up with people and just didn't. Like, I hooked up with people, like, outside of USC. Like, I think for me, I had to, like, control the variables so much that, like, I knew that they wanted to kiss me before they kissed. I've never kissed somebody who was like, no. Like, I've always known that, like, or, like, had a, like, beyond, like, a reasonable doubt that, like, yeah, they were into me or wouldn't, like, recoil.
You have to collect a certain amount of evidence before you're going to make a bold move.
Yeah, if you're neurotic.
Yeah.
And I am, in that degree.
Was Dan Lippert at USC?
Oh, yeah. So Dan Lippert came to USC. He was there my senior year. So I was graduating. We only had 1 year together at USC.
So he was like the little freshman guy.
He was the big little freshman guy. He transferred from Arizona, and
cool.
We quickly, he's the best.
And same thing with Jace.
Jace I met, well, here's a weird story. Jace is my roommate, and also one of my best friends, I would say. And he and I met through Harry, actually. I've known Jace so long. It's crazy. I met Jace when I was in 7th grade. And
wow.
We met at family functions because his family and he and Harry went to elementary school together. With
oh my gosh.
My current girlfriend, with my girlfriend.
With Marissa?
With Marissa. Marissa was a few years older than Harry and Jace, and they went to this school together. Which is crazy, that all those ties, like, it goes back to there. But so I met Jace, and we even did a video together in the freshman year of college. Harry and I made a Channel 101. We never, like, had a successful one, or one that screened. But we made all these Channel 101s. It was like an unofficial film school, governed by us and message boards where Dan Harmon would, spit out suggestions and advice to anybody who would read it. I think they just, like, Splitsider did an article about that somewhat recently. Like, they just copy and pasted stuff from those message boards, and it's great. But Harry and I did something with Jace, and we barely knew each other, and, like, didn't talk. And then he was on UC Santa Barbara's improv team, and he came to Fracas, and, like, he and I became we reconnected over comedy, and then ended up living together a few years later. But, like, that's how I met Jace. That's how I met Chris Oddie, somebody else, another improviser we know, and Gilly, who's on my team, I met in college. But because I met Gilly, I met Allison Fields, all these people, like Farley Elliott and Scott Nyman,
That's so weird how many of the people that would flesh out your life you were meeting in college.
I stayed at Scott Nyman's house when he was on crutches and barely interacted with him when our college group did a tour up the coast. And he was at, Cal Poly.
So, in college, you became, out of your Herald Team Winslow, you became friends with Gilly, Dan Lipper.
Dan and I, good buds.
And anybody else on that team?
On Winslow, no.
While meanwhile, I was in college becoming friends with Mary Sasson, Mano Agapian, and John Mackey.
Who are also on my team. It's crazy,
so
right?
We collected 6 out of the 8 members.
And I went to I've seen your college improv group perform. I went to the Dirty South Improv Festival my freshman year of college.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so we were, maybe had crossover. I know for sure Mano was there.
Was it in 2004?
I feel like it was 5.
5. Yeah.
There was a hand logo.
Yeah, the hand logo.
Yeah.
Oh my god. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So then you graduate college, and is there ever a second where you don't say, I want to try to make it as a actor, writer, comedian?
No, that's just kind of what I wanted to do. I still feel kind of pulled in a lot of directions. I don't know what.
What other directions do you feel pulled in?
Well, like what you were saying, but like everything requires like I don't want to be like a jack of all trades, master of none sort of scenario. Like you really have to commit to something. Like I would love to try stand up, but I feel like the level of working on it requires is something I don't have time for or wouldn't want to make time for because I'm already invested in improv and sketch and writing, and animation.
Totally.
But I feel like
you'd be spreading yourself too thin.
Yeah, like I'd rather try it when I have the time to.
Well, I've talked about this with a few other comedians that, like improvisers in our community, that stand-up just isn't hospitable to improvisers who want to do stand-up at this point because
you have to start at the bottom again.
You have to start at the bottom. The rumor we've heard is that those rooms are so cruel and full of negative people.
It sounds like such a negative place. Like I don't want to be around that. I'd rather be around supportive people.
Right, and there's this whole supportive improv community for the most part that all really wants to do stand-up and would probably be naturally good at stand-up because we've been learning how to do comedy in a different way.
Yeah.
And we've been doing, monologues in our improv that are basically, trying out stand-up in a super safe way. It feels like what needs to happen is that, we need to start making little stand-up nights just for improvisers and start doing stand-up on training wheels.
To me, that almost sounds scarier. Because I'd rather be in front of strangers than friends, I think.
Than Jace? What's Jace gonna...
Well, I don't know about Jace. Jace I'd feel cool in front of. I'd feel pretty good.
But anyway, you want to do stand-up. Is there anything else you want to do that's not...
Well, I want to, act more and do more voiceover.
Because you spend most of your time writing.
Right now, I feel like writing, is a focal point. I mean, and also, I don't know. There have been... Recently, I've had some things that, almost happened, acting-wise, that would have been, a turning point. Like jobs that would have been huge and great.
What almost happened recently?
I almost got the leading role in a horror movie franchise.
Whoa.
Which was crazy.
Can you say what franchise?
I guess so. It was Paranormal Activity.
So you would have been the lead in the next Paranormal Activity movie?
Yeah, supposedly. Although, it was down to me and some other dude. And it was I was like, oh, I guess... not that, you have to be the best actor to be in...
No, you can feel good about that.
I don't know. I think also I did well in the auditions because I got to improvise and I didn't have to do copy.
Yeah. Because they don't really want a script for their next Paranormal Activity?
No, I don't know.
I'm breaking copyright.
I have no idea. But, they were it was super fun because, getting to improvise, it's so much easier. And I think that's probably something that scares people who don't do improv, but it was just, I could be far more natural improvising, I think, at this point than... It would take a lot more work to get a level of naturalism in straight-up memorization.
It's your superpower. It's what you bring into a room that a lot of actors aren't.
Yeah, I guess so.
You're proficient in this skill that's hot right now. What are other things that almost...
That was like the biggest thing. Their project. I mean, I just don't like to bank on a project until it's like done.
Yeah.
Like there are things that I'm working on that look really good. Like like there are certain projects like in the pipeline that whatever are like optioned or in levels of development that should happen, but I've experienced things falling through last minute or know of people. I just don't want to bank on that.
Yeah.
Because that you just setting yourself up for... I feel like you have to... And this is, again, like having to do with like the nebulous nature of being like a creative person and, trying to make a career out of something creative is like... all of it can fall through at the last minute. So like you can't have high expectations. You have to temper things or go in knowing that anything and everything could fail. Like somebody, you could get cast in a sitcom and then they replace only you at the last minute.
Right.
God, that seems so heartbreaking, You're
still at the stage of your career where super exciting things have fallen through.
Sure.
And the giant thing that makes your life seemingly easier from this point on hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
But before all this happened, what were the steps that brought you up to... I think if I were listening to this, I'd be wondering, like, what made this guy get to the point where, like, he had things that were optioned and and could have almost been my favorite Paranormal Activity star.
Yeah. I don't know. I think just honestly continually like working on things, just putting things out like Tremendosaur, we just kept making videos.
Okay, so I want to hear about the path of Tremendosaur. So it began in 2007?
Yeah, I'd say 2007. We were part of this other group called the Consortium, and it was a big live sketch group, the one I told you about, and we just ended up writing a lot more, I think just because we were, driven towards that. There were other people who wrote stuff. Everybody wrote something. Some people wrote more than others. Some people were more interested in the acting side of things. And Jacob and I were like, oh, well, we like writing these things. Like we should continue just doing this, the two of us. It's, too many cooks in the kitchen. Like it's harder to get in that group, it was like everybody had to have a sketch in, regardless of quality, I would say. And like some of them were great and some of them were not. And also that's subjective. Maybe they thought that like ours were shitty, but, Jacob and I decided that we wanted to just do stuff together because we gelled and like we really liked writing stuff together. And we specifically like our first videos were like old Consortium videos or even like a Channel 101 failed pilot that I made that wasn't even Tremendosaur, that we just slapped the Tremendosaur bumper on.
Oh, cool. What was that project?
It was called Let's Help People. I think it was a parody of like, what's that house fixing up show? Extreme Home Makeover. And I did that with Harry. So we just started making videos and doing that continuously and like holding ourselves to it. And, we like, as we made for like Jacob was doing a lot more improv outside of college than I was, like he was part of the improv space. Then it was called Ultimate Improv during college. So he met a lot of other people like, who were at UCB or going to UCB. So like we kind of knew people there and like they would be guests in our sketches. And so I think that like other people saw them who wouldn't normally have seen them. And I think like the quality was like pretty good for, where we were at. Like some of them I'll look back and like cringe, but at the time it was, we were just doing what we wanted to do. And like we weren't thinking of what the next step was. We were doing it for the love of doing it. Like I don't think, I'm sure there are people who can make things for the purpose of like getting a job or like this is going to be perfect for this reel or, I'm going to get an agent because I've made these videos. But I think going in like that, you're not going to make your best work.
That's funny because when I started my sketch group, Hamilton 100,
yeah,
with Robert Stevens and Mary Sasson, like I was looking at Tremendosaur as like, oh, this is part of why I want to do this, is because, like, look at what's happening to the guys in this group. Like, this is, like, that's so cool. Huh. I want that. But it's funny that, like, you didn't seem like you had that motivation. It was just totally fun at the beginning.
Exactly. It was all fun. It was all fun and games then.
No. So at the beginning, I was gonna ask you, like, if you ever had a period where you were thinking, like, I don't know if this is gonna pan out, but
sure. I mean, like, yeah, there was like self-doubt for sure, but we got like a weird job right out of college, like hosting a Playboy TV show because of videos we made a few videos for Current's TV, whatever their channel, during college. Like, there were movie reviews and like holiday sketches. And from that, somebody messaged us through Current's message board from Playboy TV asking if we wanted to, like, host a show. And it is probably the most embarrassing thing that's readily available on the internet of Jacob and I. Like, just, like, stilted deliveries and, like, bad, cheesy lines, and, like, us in front of, like, legitimate, like, naked people fucking. And really? Like we travel, like, it was a cool, like, I got to experience like such a different world. Like, people were it's so strange. Like, just like the first day on a porn set, like, because it went behind the scenes of porn shows. And like, if I were watching me on that show and I knew me and I wasn't me, I would for sure make fun of it. But it was such a cool, weird experience.
Sounds like a dream come true to me.
Well, that's what a lot of people honestly said.
Not because,
but like, it wasn't
at
like,
all because of the nakedness.
It was honestly, it made us both super uncomfortable. I think we were the wrong people for that kind of job. Although at the same time, I think the gimmick was like, look at these nerdy guys with these hot girls.
Yeah, I can see how the whole thing sounds uncomfortable. Yeah. The dream to me is being right out of college and getting paid to host a show and travel with your
That was the
friends.
Coolest thing, and we were getting, like, and I spent a lot of money on an Xbox at that point, or, what was a lot of money, although still is, but it was just like...
Did you have the sense at that time that money like that would, like, keep on coming in?
At that point I was like, well, we're hosting this thing, like, great. And it was so weird. It was so strange, because, like, you just got exposed to, like some porn stars were the exact, like, sad, parody or, like, image that you imagine them to be. And some of them were, like, super cool, smart, just open people. And I think it ran the gamut from, like, sad, skeezy places that, like, for sure were breaking some sort of laws to this is what people legitimately wanted to be doing, and this was the art they were making. Or, what they... Or even if it wasn't the art they were making, it, like... It was it made them happy,
Yeah.
And, like, great. Sometimes it was weird, because, like, there was this one we went to where, like, the couple got off being watched. And so we were interviewing them, and we were turning them on just being there, and I felt like I was being used. I was like, well, I didn't sign up to, like, be a part of somebody's sex act. I've signed up to, like, we just walk in and say stupid shit and interview people and then, call it a day. So that felt almost, like, strangely manipulative. And I was like, oh, I don't know how to feel about this.
Yeah. How did your mom feel about that?
I don't know. I mean, like, she was like, can I watch it? I was like, you can. I'm not watching it with you. It was, like, hardcore sex. I think she was proud of me in the Jewish mother way, but, like, I think she started to watch it once and was like, I couldn't, like, get through it. But she, like, I'm happy for you. Like, she's pretty open. But even that, like, it's pretty embarrassing and bad.
So you had that exciting thing happen pretty quickly, and Current came from Tremendosaur?
Yeah.
And then, how does Current stop happening?
I mean, we just only did a few things.
And the
girl we knew who worked there, I think, stopped working there.
And the porn shows?
It was just one season.
Okay. And then, what was the next little bit of your life like? You're still making
I worked
videos.
I worked at a comedy website that just aggregated videos and lists from other people's sites. Like, they didn't make any original content. It was like I was an intern that was, like, I think I was a paid intern, maybe not at first. And then they had me, like, writing their video game blog. But which my uncle wrote before me.
Really?
Yeah, my uncle does comedy.
So did your uncle help you get that job?
Incidentally, no. It was coincidental. This guy I met, who now works at Funny or Die, he's an improviser named Chris Single. He and I met at a UCB class, and he told me about the job, and I asked him if he could like put in a good word for me, or like, and he was super cool and got me hired there. But it was just like writing fluffer filler descriptions to like get people to look at like I was embedding a Funny or Die video in a blog post, so it was just like or like a funny picture, like, but none of it was original content.
Yeah,
and I was like driving to Santa Monica to do it. And
part of the giant industry of recycling things that other people have made.
I think, and like now that site doesn't even really exist, and I think it does, but like in its most basic form, and I think it was run by the guy who like helped co-found the Disney Afternoon, to give you an idea of like how into comedy he was.
I did love Disney Afternoon. Yeah,
me too, but it was not it was a little bit of a sad realization.
Yeah. So, and that might have felt like a step down working at that website from...
I guess, yeah.
It doesn't sound like you were looking at it that way.
At that point, I just was happy to have a job.
Yeah.
Because it was like a job, like it was easy. And I mean, it paid terribly, like I was doing that, and...
Your outlook through your entire life out here in LA sounds very different from mine, which has been a lot more feeling horrible about myself.
Well, I felt terrible. I remember there was a day that I came home, my girlfriend at the time, like we got in a fight, or not even a fight, I guess it was just kind of like there was crying involved, just because she was just like, I can't handle being around how stressed you are. You know, like how, like, I guess I just, like, complained all the time and, like, felt so shitty about not, like, getting anywhere at that point that she was like, just like, oh, that's all you're talking about right now. And I was like, oh my God, I'm just, like, dumping this here. And, like, that was a turning point. Like, it wasn't, I mean, it was, I guess, like, first world problems, like, I was working at a, comedy aggregator. It wasn't the worst thing in the world, but, like, it felt like kind of soul-sucking. Honestly, because where I was living at the time was on a place with shitty parking. I was driving from, like, Hollywood to Santa Monica at rush hour and back. And it was, like, after 2 hours in traffic, it took, like, 30 minutes to find a parking spot. And I just wanted to, like, kill myself. Not really, but, like, I was like, ugh. Like, I'm not, like, a road ragey person. But at that point, I would just be, like, yelling in my car, like, really? Like, there's not a parking spot anywhere?
Well, it's the obnoxious, like, attitude of people in our industry is like, I feel really sucky because literally the best thing hasn't happened to me.
Right, and also like fuck, I just got out of college. Like, ooh, I felt entitled. Are you like, just doing comedy in college? I thought that I already was like, ahead of it.
Yeah,
but
you were cock of the walk at USC.
Yeah, when we were leaving, for sure. Like, was, I think, probably at my most, like, confident as a performer. I mean, there are moments of that, but, like, also everybody we know is so funny.
Yeah. In the microcosm of USC, would, like, kids you don't know come up to you? And,
I mean, like, there were people, like, there were fans of, like, college improv groups and, like weird Facebook messages from, like, girls who I didn't know, and I could have, like, in hindsight, I was like, oh, like, really? Like, you didn't, like, hook up with that person?
Yeah.
But I was such a weirdo.
It's crazy to taste that, like, little, like, bit of celebrity. That
mini celebrity, big fish, small pond sort of thing.
Yeah. And then you come out into the big pond. But weird that your small pond was in the big pond that you'd be entering.
I guess, yeah.
So what Tremendosaur, like, what stage in Tremendosaur's life did things that were more exciting to you start happening? The way I perceived it, just, so tell me if I'm wrong, was that, like, you guys made a certain amount of videos and then, like, companies like Adam or Red Bull would come to you and, like...
Well, Red Bull was, like, through Funny or Die. We got Funny or Die work. We went into pitch videos to Funny or Die. And they were like, oh, well, we really writers just write the videos here. And like in that meeting, like we were offered a job if we wanted to do like branded content for a Starbucks video, and they literally just like assigned us something there, which was so cool. And I mean, that video didn't end up getting made. It was about a psychic barista.
That sounds good.
A lot
of promise.
Real good stuff. But you know, and then we like just got a good amount of work with them just because I think we were like down to do it, and that was cool. And you know, so we were doing that, and like, you know, we got a manager through like a friend of mine who was an intern, you know, somewhere recommended that somebody look at our videos. It was just like by like a word of mouth sort of thing.
Who's still your manager?
Uh-huh.
Awesome. And then did things just seem to sort of organically like just keep like work begot more work?
Yeah, I think it, and there were certain things that there was a big project that Jacob and I turned down. It was like it was the biggest project we had. It was like a web show. It was like a movie parody show. And at that point, I mean, I think I don't know if I would have turned it down now, but I think they wanted us to like write, produce, edit, act, like do everything for a pretty nominal fee.
Okay. So
and honestly, it's not like good. It wasn't good money, but it would have been like, I think through like an MTV kind of affiliate. And I remember like we had such a moral crisis because it was like, I don't really like, the people there were super nice and cool, but like we were just, it felt like all we were doing were like parodies, and I think we had like loftier aspirations of writing like longer form things. And so we didn't take that. And I feel like things like ebb and flow, like when you don't take opportunities, sometimes it's good, and it like provided time to work on other things, but also like financially like made less money.
Do you feel good about making that decision today?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Were there months prior to today where you didn't feel good about that decision?
Sure. I mean, like sometimes when I like was super broke, and so, you know, like depending on what month you talk to me, like I could be now.
Yeah.
But it's just, it was just something that didn't feel right. And I remember seeing that Louis episode. I think it was the one with Joan Rivers.
Yeah.
The one where like he feels like an idiot for like turning down a show or something, and like the moral was like, no, you always take it. And I remember feeling really conflicted because I agreed with Louis on like I, you know, really respect him, and like the show meant so much to me. And and then him saying that was like, well, should I have taken that job? That's what I equated it to. And I don't regret it because it didn't feel right. And good things are still happening in different ways. And
yeah. No, I think you're the winner in that decision. I think that's like the decision that you regret 3 months from that day, and maybe 3 years from that day, but I can't imagine regretting that 30 years from that, unless nothing good ever happened again.
Yeah. Well, so I honestly think like success ebbs and flows for a little bit, for at least for like, you know, Tremendosaur, like I think we burnt out on sketches too. Like we've taken a long break from releasing new material. Just because we're working on longer form stuff. Because I think there's only so many things you can write with characters that don't have any end goal other than to be like a joke or kind of enough depth to get you through a premise.
What was your proudest Tremendosaur moment? Like your favorite video?
I really like Contacts for Your Cat.
What's the idea of that?
It's just an infomercial or commercial about contact lenses for cats. It's so silly. But I think it's my favorite, and I know one of Jacob's. Like, I think there's a Bride of Frankenstein sketch we did, which I think, to me, has like one of my favorite endings. It's just Alex Berg as Igor smoking a dildo like a cigar as the Seinfeld music. And like to me, that's like great, cool. And like the set on that, it was all mostly practical. And like this guy, Will Mendoza, who does UCB stuff, he's in like the UCB community. He did the graphics for it. But like artistically, I think it looked so cool. Jace at that time was holding the castle set in Chris Adi's garage up as the sketch went on.
Oh, I remember the set looked amazing.
It looked so cool. I think it wasn't necessarily like it's like a fine sketch, But the best part of it to me is like the elaborate set and costumes.
What's it called if people want to look it up?
It's just Bride of Frankenstein.
Oh, cool. And it's on Adam or it's
I think it is on or Comedy Central's video site, CC Online.
Awesome.
But it might also be on our YouTube. I don't know.
So simultaneously to all this Tremendosaur stuff, you're taking classes at UCB and then doing a bunch of
I started
groups.
UCB classes in college,
Okay.
yeah.
And so you did you go up through the UCB with Jacob? Like
I did 101. Well, we did 101 separately. I had John Ross Bowie, and it was my senior year of college. I took a break, and then I had Will McLaughlin. He was my 201, and then I had Leffingwell for 301. You didn't ask to hear all these teachers, but they're happening.
So upset about it.
I think I took 401 twice with Danielle Schneider, and that's where I met Betsy Sodaro and Tony Charlene.
Because that was her first time in 401.
That was her first time in 401 too. And Stephanie
Wow.
Allen was in that, and she got on arts and athletics at that time. And I remember like that's how me and Jacob and I were in a class together for the first time in 401, and me and Jacob and Betsy and Tony just like gravitated toward each other.
Do you remember all those people like who everybody knows are excellent now being at a stage of like being less proficient?
Betsy was always funny, and I mean Tony was super funny too. Like,
yeah.
It's hard for me to pull it apart. Like, there are certain people I can look at, myself included, like I can see the growth.
Yeah.
Like, I had certain friends who I was like, oh man, like you've come a long way and you're incredibly funny now. And like, you know, I saw you when you were just trying shit out and a lot of it would like fall on its face.
Yeah.
But I remember Betsy and Tony were just insanely funny in class.
Yeah.
And Jacob's always been great. You know, like all three of them, I just remember all of them were super funny in that class. And like we loved performing together at the time. Like we did a lot of IO cage matches as ladies and gentlemen, which was the four of us.
I love Ladies and Gentlemen.
It was the most fun. Some of the most fun improv shows I've ever had.
So can you put yourself in like the mind space you were in your third audition when you didn't make it in?
Yeah, the third one, I was really sick. I literally lost my voice before, I don't remember, I think it was the callback. So I was just trying to stand up. Like I felt so shitty. So I was like, well, hopefully they'll recognize that, like, you know, and that audition I was still nervous, but I was like just upset that I was sick. Mm-hmm. And I think I was able to get out words. I didn't speak for most of the day just to do that. And then I think afterwards Jacob and I were hosting Not Too Shabby anyway.
So that felt good.
So that was like, well, cool, even though I was super sick.
Yeah. And so did you give yourself a pass when it didn't happen that time, but you were like, that's okay because I was sick?
Yeah, a little bit, but I also could. I mean, I could have made better moves, but also I was too sick. I think honestly, I wasn't very confident in those. I think the fourth time I auditioned, I didn't really care as much, and I went in and I made bigger moves. I just owned whatever I did a little more, and I also was pretty sad still from the breakup of my ex-girlfriend. And I think at that, I think I remember saying something that got a laugh in the audition that was just very true. Just a really sad specific about, an ex-girlfriend, my breakup. And it worked.
That's awesome.
But it was, yeah. I think I didn't really care as much. I was like, well, if I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. It's already happened. It already hasn't happened 3 times, and I'm gonna keep trying. So what's I was I loved UCB, and I think for sure after the sometime when I wouldn't get on, there would be I would not want to go to shows as frequently. There's that sting, but also didn't take it personally.
Yeah.
There are a ton of people, a ton of talented people.
That's a very reasonable way to look at it.
Yeah.
So from my point of view, you're a step ahead of me in my career and have a lot of the things I feel I want. Like, just looking at you, being on a Herald team, I want to be on a Herald team. Like, going out, like, pitching shows around town to people. Like, I don't have those meetings yet. That sounds really awesome to me. For you, like, do you feel just, like, super happy and content right now? Or are you,
Nope. Not at all. I don't know. I think what I'm realizing is I have to learn how to be happy with what I have, because there's always going to be the next step. Like, there's always going to be like, okay, like, I did this, got to this milestone. Like, I don't know why I'm compelled to, like, keep moving forward. I was just talking about this with somebody recently, but there's something I really miss and feel nostalgic for about, I hope this doesn't sound like high and mighty, but like about like really like originally like taking UCB classes in the beginning and that kind of, like just starting at the theater. There's more freedom to like fail. It feels like there's more at stake now. Like, now I have to make a career out of this. At that point, it almost felt unattainable to get on a Herald team.
Yeah.
And it's, like I was just working on it because I loved it and I was learning. And there's that, the education period of like, it didn't seem like it needed to happen to survive. It was something that I just loved doing. And, you just had more freedom to fail because you were learning. And I think like the more proficient you get at it, the more I think there are like higher expectations. And then you're trying to do this to make money. And then, like there's just something that's, and maybe I just need to like take another class, which I really want to do. God, if I could do anything right now, if my days weren't taken up, I would like take at least like one UCB class, maybe like a groundlings class, just cause, and like boot camp. Susie and fill in, use Susie Barrett's boot camp with like Drew, DeFonso Marks, or Eugene, or whoever's filling in for Drew.
And if you could isolate one success thing that in your imagination right now, like once that thing happens, like you'll be a little bit more content, what would that thing be?
I think selling my own TV show or project. Being able to make money being able to make a living doing what I love to do, I guess is really what it is. Even it would be that like acting, writing. I think I'd like to act more than write just because I think it's easier.
Really? That's
not why. I mean, like, I just feel like I love writing so much, but I go insane. Like, just trying to like break a story or trying to like find the perfect joke and not judging yourself as you go through each draft or as you're writing it.
Yeah.
It's like so much more in your head, and sometimes, like just beating your head against a wall. And it's also like acting, like it's difficult for sure, but like you show up and you leave. Like I've been on all sides of like, a set, like from like PA to like acting in something to writing on it. And for sure on set, I think acting is one of the easier things you can do. Like people pamper you, you get a trailer, if it's like, a real thing, and you don't have to like carry things and do the grunt work. And not that there isn't like prep that goes into it, but like, out of all those things, that seems like the most relaxed part of it. I guess maybe easy wasn't the right word, but like yeah.
I think a lot of people decide they want to be actors because they think...
It's not because I think it's easy to do. It's because out of all those things, like that, I mean, like, honestly, creating a show seems like the most appealing thing.
In the world.
Yeah. Great. Be a part of it, like, on the acting end, like, if it's a cartoon, doing cool, fun voices, bringing my friends in, like, that's what I think we all want to do, right? Is... At least like any comedian I've talked to, like the goal is just like sustain yourself and make money doing what you love doing and hire your friends and be hired by your friends and work with the people you love. Great.
Well, I hope that when people listen to this in 5 years on loop, like they will.
That's a long loop.
they'll be doing it in a world where all those things are your reality.
Yeah.
To the max.
To the max.
But I'm sure you still will be very unhappy.
Oh yeah. Well, no, I don't want to be.
No, you'll be really happy.
I know.
We'll all be really happy.
Let's buck the trend and not be like unhappy comedians.
Let's be happy comedians.
I think it's possible. I really do.
Is that our revolution? Are we going to be like the generation of comedians that aren't fucked up but are just like?
Well, we're fucked up. We'll be fucked up, but
we'll just be happy.
Yeah, we'll be helpful to each other. We'll support each other, and we'll be happy. I remember Jacob and I, when we wrote on Matt Besser's show, this show will get you high. There was this one writer who had written on Conan, and we were talking with him, and he was just like, "You guys are so nice to each other." He just seemed so perplexed that we were nice to each other.
Oh man.
And he was like, "A lot of you guys are just like nicer and happier and supportive these days, aren't you?" He's like, "That's great. I just can't imagine we're always like." I mean, maybe that was just his particular circle, but I really do. Maybe it's just the group of people we know, but I feel like we're insanely supportive of each other.
I think you're right.
And I'm legitimately happy when people get things. I don't, sometimes it's like, man, I wish I was doing stuff also, but not in not in a shitty, jealous way. I don't wish that other people didn't get stuff,
Yeah, but on an incredibly sincere note, your positivity is electric. And,
man,
it
yours is. You're a great guy.
Oh no, this isn't.
It's true.
We're just unzipping each other's flies right now.
Yeah, I guess the cartoonishly gay videos were true after all.
Thanks for talking to me today, Justin.
Yeah, thanks for having me talk.
This was a pleasure.
A pleasure?
This was a pleasure.
This was a pleasure and a pleasure. You're a delight, Ben Green.
I love you.
Bye.
Bye.
I hope it didn't come off like an asshole.
So that was a pretty fun conversation, huh? The cool thing is that listening to it 2 years after the fact, we get to know that not long after this interview happened, Justin actually got to live out kind of the dream he talked about having in the episode. When him and Dan Lippert and their friend Harry created Friendship All-Stars of Friendship, that ended up being a show that was their opportunity to make something completely theirself that was this awesome claymation animation style, and get to hire their friends to do the voices, and get to run a show that was completely the kind of thing they would want to do. And they've got more of that in front of them. So it's cool to see how, even since this interview, Justin has come a step closer to his dreams. For more about Justin Michael, you can check out his website, heyjustin.tumblr.com. You can see him almost every Monday with his team Winslow at the UCB Theater. You should check out his podcast, Before You Were Funny, where he interviews comedians and they read sketches that they wrote before they were funny. And you can check out Tremendosaur on YouTube and lots of other places. Special thanks to my producer Cece Pierce, to Casey Triola for all the music in this episode, and to my sound editor Joe Burge. This has been On the Cusp.
That's your outro music.